So this is podcast number 4. Ross and I wanted to come to a cemetery at a place called Ligenhook, but we couldn't quite make it. We had trouble with transportation issues, so we took a train about half the way to this station called Popering. This is a fantastic photograph from 1914 and a blend. I love what they've done here. These look like Australian diggers on their way to the front lines, I presume, and then they've sort of superimposed or done the old Photoshop thing with the trains from the current era. It's just absolutely fantastic. So we've had a couple of great days here in Europe. It's just been fantastic. Stephen was his usual brilliant self, and I think everybody's enjoyed the trip. It's been interesting. It's been emotional. It's been sort of all that we wanted. And certainly, when Ross and I spoke to Kathy and Barb last night, they were pretty effusive in their praise for the work that had been done by all of us to make this happen.
I didn't think I'd become emotionally attached to the imaginary Sidney Norris Rich. Yeah. Because although I'd heard about him growing up, it was just my mom's uncle, and this made me think of him as a young man and having a life and a relation to his sisters and his parents and his community.
Was not prepared to have it brought down to such a personal level. I kind of thought, oh great, this is a good excuse to go to Europe. I'm going to learn a little bit. I'll learn about World War I. But I always thought it was a great idea that we could flesh out a story. But like I said, I wasn't prepared for the personal level that it became. I was expecting sort of this overarching story that may not affect me so personally, would involve our family, but not on such a deep level.
The memento that Nikki and I devised was a bit of a surprise, and I think went down pretty well. So a couple of months ago, Nick and I were pondering how we might possibly mark this spot. And my clever wife said, well, he's a surveyor. Surveyor's stake would be the obvious thing to use. So I went online to find out where I could find one, and I was amazed to realize that in those days they used regular surveyor's stakes, but they also used railway spikes as a way of marking the spots. So Nick and I found an antique store out in Langley and bought a bunch of them, including this one, and we had it inscribed. So it says, in memoriam, Sidney Rich, June 3rd, 1916. There's not too much else to say. There's just been so much going on. Stephen has so much information. It's going to be very hard for me to sort of work my way through it and figure out just what I need. We could almost make a film of just him talking about the Great War and Sidney's movements through it and his death.
And that's this area here around these trees. Now we're going to go down there, that little track there, for about 50 yards, I think.
The spot that we found to mark where we think he was buried was a lovely little wooded area. You'll obviously see some footage of that, and it was a lovely, solemn moment. The weather has been extraordinarily cooperative. I mean, when Ross and I looked at the long-range forecast a couple of days ago, it was like 90% chance of rain one day, 60% the next, and 80 the third or something. So we weren't optimistic at all. We've certainly had some issues with rain, the occasional bit of drizzle and stuff, but for the most part we've been able to get the work done without too much hassle. Stephen made arrangements for Barb and Kathy to place a wreath at the Menin Gate on one of the nights that we were there, in what I think was a fairly emotional ceremony for the two women. So I'm quite looking forward to beginning to try to edit the whole thing together. I have a definite plan in my mind as to how I want it to look and sound, and I think we've been able to capture as much of the footage as is reasonably necessary to get that done. I've got an embarrassment of riches, quite frankly, when it comes to editing it all together. So it's going to be fun over the next couple of months, just working through it, seeing how it all works out. So I'll leave it at that. I'm hoping I'll get a chance to post this at some stage while we're still away, or fairly soon after we come home. One of the challenges for sure has been trying to get reliable Wi-Fi. You can get a Wi-Fi signal for 2 minutes, which will allow you to pick up some of your email. But if you want to try and do something like post something to YouTube, I'd say good luck with that. So I'm hoping in Bordeaux at the hotel there that we might have a chance to do that. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.